All right, thanks for joining me today on Discovering My Dividends. And if you're new to investing and you're kind of scared to jump into the market right now because of all the volatility, all the uncertainty, I mean, you're probably not wrong for those reasons. But the other thing about it is if you don't put a ton of money into it, or if you don't have a lot of money, you can learn a lot because you're going to see a lot of movement in the market and you're going to start to realize bad news doesn't always mean a bad thing, and good news doesn't always mean a good thing. And of course, that statement alone just kind of makes everything worse, right? Because it's like, okay, well, if you can't trust what's being said, you can't trust what you're seeing. What is the situation? Well, Warren Buffett, who's a billionaire, if you're not familiar with Warren Buffett, then you definitely are new to investing. Um, he's made a living at buying and selling stocks, and not as a day trader, but he'll buy and hold them. He's primarily value stocks, and I'm not an expert on Warren Buffett, so I mean you can research him, but he'll go out and look for value and try and find a stock that's undervalued, and buy that stock, and a stock that he thinks it's going to have long-term value. Now he talks about buying stocks that you're familiar with, like if you know stuff about gardening, then invest in companies that are about gardening and so on and so forth. Now I don't know if you can legitimately do that. Uh, only pick stuff that you know about. But nonetheless, he's done well. So I mean, obviously his advice has some merit. Whereas mine, I'm still kind of I'm still learning, right? And I'm not a millionaire by any means. So my advice is not about how you become a millionaire. My advice is like, how do you get started without like losing your shirt, which, see, I still got my shirt on, so I'm good, right? Okay, bad joke. But you know what I'm saying is, getting started is really almost as tough as like, how do you become successful? Because I've actually got to a point where I'm successful at the level I'm at, and I can make trades and make money. And I just had a trade go through that went through faster than I thought, but I bought it and it had gone down, and I thought, well, I'm gonna have to hold this for maybe a couple months, but I'm okay with it because the dividends half decent. I'll get some dividend, I'll sell it off, I'll make my 5% or whatever, and that's kind of what I expected. But it actually sold after 2 days, and I made my 5% in a couple days, so that was actually a decent trade. And so trading as opposed to investing, well, if you're investing, you're just throwing money in and you're trying to get a dividend for it, which is more passive. Where trading, you're trying to get a gain off of the trade. And in my case, I could take whatever passive income comes with it, whatever dividend is paid out, while trying to get an increase. So I'm looking at a stock right now that is really in the toilet, and I'm actually looking at buying it. They're talking about cutting the dividend down, and I think that's where the price is dropping right now. It's already had several drops over the last year, and I kind of feel like it's near its bottom. It should be less affected by the trade wars because it's a Canadian company that's primarily in the Canadian markets. Now that doesn't mean some of its expenses won't go up, and there might be people within its service area that are going to spend less money, so it has that potential to lose some income. But it's also in a market where people generally need the things that it sells. So it's kind of like gas stations aren't going to lose a lot of people. They just might not drive as much, right? So uh, it's one of those things. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to actually purchase this stock. And I guess when you're looking at it, yeah, like right now the dividend yields 13.44%. Wow, hey, yeah, like that's pretty great. But if they cut it, what are they going to cut it down to? My thoughts are if they cut it down to like 3 to 5%, which I think normally it was running in that 3 to 5%, if I remember correctly. It does have like a strong tradition of doing a dividend, and that would probably save it like millions of dollars. And they're doing some other stuff, which I think is going to change their outlook. They're paying out a lot of cash, but they're not getting as much in return. So I think they're going to do some things to rectify that and get some of their debt down. So they get the debt down, they're going to have more cash flow. Their dividend should not be long-term affected. Like in other words, I don't feel like they're going to have to keep cutting their dividend. And at some point, I think they'll turn their business around because they got a lot of infrastructure they've invested in, and I think it's a telecom company. Telecom companies need to have that infrastructure to get the payout, and I think they're gonna get that at some point. So yeah, that's kind of where that's at. Now I do have a checklist. So if you're new to investing, I do have a checklist. You can click the link in the description there, and you can go check out check that list out. It's a pretty basic list. You can see it. It kind of gives you some things to think about as you're starting out. I'm not going to tell you what strategy to pick, other than, like my strategy is pretty basic. Looking for something that's low to buy, and then when it goes high, sell it. And if you're looking at being a day trader, well, just remember 70% of day traders or 80% of day traders fail in the first year, and or don't make money in the first year. Like it's pretty ridiculous the amount of people that fail thinking they're going to jump in and be a day trader right away. I don't have the time or the wherewithal to be a day trader, so I'm not even going to direct you on that. But I do think you need to have the basics, and that list that I have kind of gets you started. You can add to it, you can build on it. I'm not an advisor, so it's more of a, hey, these are things I think might help you. It doesn't mean it's an endless list that you can say, oh, if I follow this, I'm going to be a millionaire. That's not what it's about. It's about get you started, get you going, and I would check it out. Now, I do all my trading on no fees basis. So the stocks that I buy, I don't have to get a huge gain to get a profit. So I always recommend a no fees a broker when it's easy to use. So if you're in Canada, I use Wealthsimple. So check that out. There's a link there. We both get the same reward. And yes, I'm pawning off my things that I use to try and earn some money to pay for my YouTube channel. But essentially, those are things I think will help new investors. And so the reason I'm talking about this stock here, a telecom company that's down on price, has been going down for the last year, and what I'm thinking about buying is it's down below its recent high. And when I talk recent high, it's kind of seemed like it's leveled out a bit, and so I'm looking for, it's down in price, I'm looking for a bounce. I also think the long-term value of this company is good, so I feel like even if I don't get a turnaround immediately, I'm going to have a long-term value out of this company. And I think once they rectify their current issues, their dividend's going to be very valuable to me if I end up holding it for a long period of time. But as for right now, I'm hoping for a quick turnaround, quick bounce, and yes, get my 5% and get lost. So that's it for today. Hope you'll join me for my next video. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the challenge that I have, where I am trying to make $1 million in less than 7 years. I know, not sexy. You can see on YouTube, there's people that make $1 million in, I think, 3 hours or whatever they claim. But there's always somebody making more. But if you're kind of starting out, realistic goals, I think probably make a little more sense. So we'll see you for the next video. Thanks for joining me. Oh yeah, don't forget, click subscribe and like.